Lesson 3.1, Parallel Lines and Transversals, beginning on page 175. Number 1, refer to the figure at the right to identify each of the following. A plane parallel to plane ZWX. So plane ZWX, here's ZWX, which would also contain point Y, would be the top of the box. If we want a plane parallel to that, then we want the bottom of the box. So we want this plane right down here, which would be any three of the four letters. You could call it TSV or SVU or whatever you'd like. Number 3, all segments parallel to SV. Okay, so parallel lines are coplanar lines that do not intersect. So we would have one here, we would have one here, and we would have one right there. So that is segment TU, YX, and ZW. Numbers 5 through 8 classify the relationship between each pair of angles as alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or consecutive interior angles. So number 5, angles 1 and 8. So for angles 1 and 8, notice that they are on different sides of this line. This line we call the transversal. A transversal is just a line that intersects with two or more other lines. So it's intersecting with both of these lines, so it is a transversal. So the angles are on opposite sides of the transversal, or alternating sides. And in comparison to, or the placement of these two lines, all the angles here would be on the interior of those two lines. All the angles to the left of this line and to the right of this line would be on the exterior of these two lines. So angles 1 and 8 are alternate exterior. Number 7, angles 3 and 6. 3 is here, 6 is there. So once again, those are on alternating sides of this line, of the transversal. So they are alternate, but this time notice that they are on the inside of these two lines, in between here. So that's interior, alternate interior. For 9 through 12, identify the transversal connecting each pair of angles, then classify the relationship between each pair of angles. So for number 9, angles 2 and 4. 2 is here, 4 is there. Okay, so we want, for the transversal, we want which of these three lines makes contact with both of those angles. So that would be this line. So this line N is our transversal. So identify the transversal. So that would be line N. To classify the relationship between each pair of angles, notice that they are on the same side of this line, of the transversal. They're both to the left of this line, or above this line. So they're on the same side, and they're in corresponding locations. So 4 is to the right of this line, 2 is to the right or above this line. So they're in corresponding locations. So those are corresponding angles. Next we have angles 4 and 7. So 4 and 7. What types of angles are these? Or actually first identify the transversal. So we want the line making contact with both of these angles, and that would be this line. So line M is our transversal. Then we want to classify the relationship. So they are on the same side of the transversal, both to the right of this line. And if we look at these two lines right here, they're both on the inside of these two lines. So the inside would be in here, the exterior would be up there, and down here. So those are same side interior, or consecutive interior. For 13 through 20, refer to the figure to identify each of the following. Number 13, all segments parallel to segment DM. So here we have segment DM. So parallel lines are coplanar lines that do not intersect. Basically, we want all the segments going in the same north-south direction. So we have EN, AJ, BK, and CL. Number 15, a segment skew to segment BC. Okay, so segment BC lies right there. By definition, skew lines are non-coplanar lines that don't intersect. So they do not go in the same direction, but they do not intersect. So there are several here that would be like that. KL is parallel, so we don't want that one. But any of these lines down here, okay, because they're all below this line, so they will not intersect, but they're not on the same plane. So we have that one, this one, here, and there. Those are all skew segments. Number 17, all segments skew to segment AE. Okay, so segment AE is here. We want all the segments skewed to that. So all of the segments basically on the base of this prism, except for the one that's parallel to it. So for example, in M, if I continue this line out, and I continue this line out, those lines would never intersect because this line is above this line, but they're not going in the same direction. That's what makes them skew and not parallel. Number 19, a segment parallel to segment AB through point J. Segment AB. Here is point J, so we want a segment through point J parallel to AB. So that would be JK. On numbers 21 through 30, identify the transversal connecting each pair of angles. Then classify the relationship between each pair of angles as alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or consecutive interior angles. So number 21, 4 and 9. So our transversal is going to be the line that makes contact with both of these angles, and that would be this line. So our transversal is line S. And the relationship of these two angles, both of them are on the same side of the transversal, and they're in corresponding locations because they're both above their respective line, here and here. So they are in corresponding locations. That makes them corresponding angles. Number 23, 3 and 5. Okay, the transversal is the line that makes contact with both of those angles. So that would be this line. So our transversal is line T. Notice that these two angles are on alternating sides of this line, or on opposite sides. So they're alternate. And they're in between lines R and S. They're on the inside, or the interior of R and S, in between those two. Alternate interior angles. Number 25, 1 and 6. Okay. Line T is the line that makes contact with both of them. So that is our transversal. And they're on opposite sides of the transversal, so they're alternate. And this time, they're not on the interior, they're not in between lines R and S, they're on the exterior. They're on the outside of lines R and S. Number 27, angles 2 and 3. Okay, once again, line T is our transversal. They're on the same side, or consecutive sides, of the transversal. And they're in between lines R and S, so they're on the interior. So they're consecutive interior. And number 29, 4 and 11. So we have a different transversal this time. Line S makes contact with both of those angles. And 4 and 11 are on alternating sides of the transversal, so they're alternate. And the interior of lines T and V would be these angles in here. The exterior would be up here and down here, so those are in the exterior. Okay, this time identify the transversal connecting each pair of angles in the photo of a fire escape shown. Then classify the relationship between each pair of angles. So the same thing that we were doing in the previous set. Number 31, 1 and 2. Angle 1 is here, angle 2 is there. Okay, so in this case, there's not a transversal. We just have two intersecting lines. And anytime we have intersecting lines and it's the angles opposite from each other or non-adjacent, those are vertical angles. Number 33, 4, and 5. Okay, this time we want the line that makes contact with both of those angles. So that would be this line. Let's see, I believe that is that C or D? We're going to call that line C. And those two angles are on different sides of line C, so they're on alternating sides. And they're in between lines A and D. So they're on the interior of A and D, in between A and D, not on the exterior, out here and out there. So alternate interior. And one more, number 35, 7 and 8. Okay, we want the line that makes contact with both of those angles, so that would be this line, which is line F, is our transversal. And those two angles lie on the same side of line F, and they're in corresponding locations. So we are to the right of line E for 8, and we're to the right of line D for 7. Those are corresponding angles. Number 37, power lines are not allowed to intersect. Part A, what must be the relationship between power lines P and M? Explain your reasoning. So, if power lines are not allowed to intersect and they're in the same plane, then those would be parallel. And to explain that, we would just say that they are coplanar lines that do not intersect. Part B, what is the relationship between line Q and lines P and M? So since Q intersects both of those lines, that would be the transversal of lines P and M. Number 38 through 43, describe the relationship between each pair of segments as parallel, skew, or intersecting. Number 39, A, B, and C, G. Okay, those would be skew because if I continue this, this would be towards the front, that would be towards the back. So if I extend this on up, that would pass in front of this, or this would pass behind this line as it travels up. So those are skew lines because they are non-coplanar lines that do not intersect. Number 41, DH and BF. BH and BF. Okay, since they are going in the same direction, that means that they are coplanar lines, plus they do not intersect. So those are parallel. And 43, CD and AD. Oh, they intersect at D. They have a common point, so those are intersecting.